Moi. I can't find the right words to start this video. The love and respect that I have for all of you, my family, cannot be written and cannot be transmitted through letters or sentences. This third part of the video titled To the World will be for me the most important due to the fact that to start connecting some of its topics to the question presented in the previous two parts of this documentaries, I will bring you home. Let me proudly present you the land where I belong, and largely the most energetic place I ever been. On the screen at this moment, you can appreciate a Google Map image of the Canary Island archipelago, the so-called Lucky Islands. This group of islands are part of the Macaronesia, which include the Portuguese Azores Islands, the archipelago of Madeira and Porto Santo, the tiny Islas Salvajes, and the African country of Cabo Verde. At the end of part 1 of this episode of Suomelle, I have created 3 questions concerning all of those small islands in the Atlantic Ocean that are depicted by all of the respected cartographers during the 16th and part of the 17th centuries, and in our days are no longer there. Where did they go? Is it possible that they sank? Can landmass simply disappear from records? Let's try to come out with some logical theory about their existence in history. At this moment on the screen, we have a simple map of Canary Islands in our days. Among the inhabitants of the entire archipelago, there's a so-called legend or myth of an additional island called San Borondon that used to be part of the family of lands, and in our days is no longer there. There are also countless accounts of people that swear to have actually seen it in recent time. But we have to keep in mind that the rum in Canarias is very good, so most probably drunken fishermen were seeing one of the other islands, thinking to look toward the open ocean. This is how a legend became a ridiculous bar fairy tale. But as we know, in the legends, there's always a fragment of truth. In fact, on the screen, you can appreciate a 16th century map of Canary Islands. And surprise, San Borondon is clearly there, painted with accuracy, showing the various mountains' size and shape. But that's not the only cartographical work representing San Borondon. On the screen at this moment, we can appreciate a really magnificent work made by the cartographer Jean-Baptiste Nolin in 1704. And the island of San Borondon is again clearly there. But what interests me the most about this map is the area of West Africa depicted in it. That's exactly the area that I've traveled with devotion for many months. On the screen, you can see a comparison with a today image of those lands. The desertic coast of the Western Sahara province of Morocco are very far to be so populated and with so many rivers. I have been living in Dakhla, El Ayoun and Mauritania a long time, and I have crossed those desertic lands near the coast all the way to the north of Morocco many times. That's not how it looks in our days. Also, this other old map is very baffling. We can see depicted the Canarias archipelago, but where in our days lie the enormous Sahara Desert, there is painted an elephant that, as we know, is an animal that needs a lot of water. But let's leave Africa for the future. it will become one of the topics of another part of this video. For the moment, let's keep researching those phantom islands. On the screen at this moment, we can observe a Google Map image of the Teide volcano, situated at the center of the island of Tenerife. That majestic mountain is a father for all of us, inhabitants of the archipelago, and one of the most spectacular places on Earth. As we can observe around the tip point of the volcano, there's a large volcanic caldera. On the screen you can appreciate the beauty and otherworldly aspect of the paysage in the interior of it. For what I have understood, the caldera has formed due to the collapse of the previous tip of the volcano once had reached an elevation that was no longer sustainable and became more fragile to the effect of the various subsequent earthquakes and eruption. As we can observe, the tip has regrown in the interior of the caldera, giving birth to these breathtaking views, and it is visible from almost the entire archipelago. If we move toward the west neighbor island of La Palma, La Isla Bonita, to me the most beautiful place on Earth, we can observe that the tip of the volcano once had reached an unsustainable size and height. By the way, it got to 5,000 meters or 16,000 feet, had collapsed under its weight, creating the magnificent Caldera de Taburiente. The problem with this particular implosion was caused from the fact that the enormous amount of debris generated from the landslide have accumulated on top of the original volcanic lands, creating an unsustainable second layer of ground in the large valley below. But there's a bigger problem with this volcano. The underwater structure of it has kind of a mushroom shape, having a section where the formation is thinner than the upper land. An important TV channel a few years ago published a documentary about the 5 biggest natural disaster risks for North America, and one of them was the island of La Palma. During the last eruption of 1979, located in the south tip of the island, some areas have cracked as consequence of the earthquake and explosion generated by that spectacular event. There is no doubt that sooner or later an enormous part of the island will fall into the ocean, with a catastrophic result for the eastern coast of America. But I have a better example concerning the sinking island investigation. Moving a few kilometers south of La Palma, we can observe the smallest and youngest island of the archipelago, El Hierro. As we can observe, it is actually half island, or it's missing a very large part of its caldera. El Hierro has experienced at least 3 massive landslides. The largest one originates in the north side of the island, bringing to existence the splendid Gulf of Frontera, that to me is the most breathtaking view of the entire archipelago. The second one affected the south part of the island, where in our days lies the Mar de las Calmas, with its unique marine ecosystem, and the smallest one on the east side, in the areas of Las Playas. On the screen you can appreciate a very interesting formation that is located at the bottom of the area that was affected by the landslide. Its name is Roque de la Bonanza. If we close up toward the west and most remote area of the island, we can observe a series of cliffs. By the way, this was the Meridian Zero before being moved to London. Looking at them with a bit of logic, a question comes to my mind. Can it be that this area will be the next one to fall into the ocean? The 27th December 2013, in fact, a powerful earthquake, magnitude 5.7 on Richter scale, originated in the ocean few kilometers in front of those cliffs. You can see a white dot on the map showing the epicenter, And as you can appreciate on the screen, that scenario suddenly turned almost into reality. It was the strongest earthquake to hit Canary Island since we have records, and it was felt almost in the entire archipelago. These are the only images available of the moments after the strongest quake hit the area. Only few unprepared people were present in that remote and unpopulated area during the event. I was personally under those cliffs. It was the most terrific experience of all of my life. Having already studied the possibility of an enormous landslide in this particular area of the island, I was sure, and I was waiting for those cliffs to collapse in front of my eyes. Thanks to life, that it was not the case, and I'm still here telling you this adventure. But I could prove myself that events of this magnitude can seriously affect large areas of land, with catastrophic results. On the island of La Palma, we can find seashell at 2,500 meters of altitude, some 8,000 feet. Most probably, they got up there as a consequence of enormous waves generated by some of those landslides. The disgusting side of this earthquake was that not a lot of people were alerted or knew about it, and everything was kept silent by the liar media in collaboration with the sick government interest, due to the fact that the event happened during the highest tourist season. The same situation of silence from the authority was the 2004 tsunami that occurred in the coast of the Indian Ocean, causing over 240,000 deaths. Was the same period of high tourist season. No comment are needed. At this point, I think we have learned that a large part of island can suddenly break apart with catastrophic results. The idea of having an extra island depicted in the old maps and seashells in high points of the mountains can bring us to the conclusion that also entire island can sink. In 1755, the 1st of November, a series of powerful tsunamis struck the coast of Portugal and Spain, leaving behind total destruction. The official version is of a powerful earthquake, magnitude 9 on Richter scale, originate in the ocean southwest of Lisbon, giving origin to the series of tsunami. How could they know or theorize this magnitude? But anyway, to me, the accounts written in the books give us more the idea of some landmass that sink in front of the coast of Portugal than actually the aftermath of an earthquake. But it's a long story, and in this video I have other questions ready to talk about. So now we have a logical reason for the disappearance of all of those small islands in the Atlantic Ocean depicted in all cartographical works. But the sinking island hypothesis is not the only logical theory about their disappearance. We will talk about a second possibility in the next part of this video. For the moment, let's bring back the subject of the buried cities. There's a channel of a person that I would like to call a friend, that it's researching with amazing result this enigma. On the screen you can see his logo and name. In that channel you will find a lot of beautiful material to investigate and study. Well, Canary Island are also known for some pyramidal structures located in the valley of Guimar, Tenerife. Interestingly enough, when discovered, they were not buried by meters of earth or clay. But if we move to the volcanic island of Rapa Nui in the Pacific Ocean, we discover that the Moai statues were buried by many meters of earth or clay. Interesting. But I will not talk about the pyramids of Tenerife, but I will instead present you some very enigmatic petroglyphs, made supposedly hundreds of years ago by the aboriginal and primitive inhabitants of the islands, the Guanche. In the next few images, we can appreciate some of the thousands of rock carving present all over the archipelago. These in particular are from El Hierro, and surprise, when discovered, they were not covered by meter of earth. The petroglyphs are located in the proximity of the sea, but also in the mountains and valleys. In La Palma, for example, they are found at over 800 meters from sea level. So we have few hundred years old houses buried by meters of earth, and hundreds upon hundreds years old petroglyphs completely exposed and uncovered all over volcanic islands. The enigma of selected areas of the world being buried and other affected by different kind of natural disaster starts to increase the possibility of many catastrophic events in the more and less recent past, and the possibility that those events were staged. But it's too early to take conclusion. So we were talking about petroglyphs. I personally think that those images of the rock carving were beautiful, but the petroglyph of Canary Islands are not the one that I want to talk about in this video. Now we will move way north, but first I would like to show you this kind of ancient vehicle tracks found in Lanzarote, and there are similar signs on the stones in the archaeological sites of Tenerife and Gran Canaria. The New Earth channel is investigating deeply this phenomenon of ancient tracks all over the world, with very enigmatic results. Second of all, I would like to show you the tiny archipelago of Islas Salvajes, located between Canary Island and Madeira. There's a very strange question about them. Can you see how some of them look like cut? I mean, I have passed beside them many times in my life, and I always ask myself, how is it possible that they are kind of missing the top? In particular on this image, we can observe that the island in front is completely flat at the top, and we can see the other one sticking out from behind. I always found it peculiar. But for those who are interested in volcanic activity, magmatic uplift, and other data about tsunami or earthquake, I can recommend a channel that is kindly sending me literally dozens of links and knowledge on these topics, among other like Antarctica database and so on. On the screen you can see the name and logo of this project, which I would like to thank. Now let's try to connect a few more dots. We have researched a bit the small islands in the Atlantic Ocean that were depicted in the old maps, at least throughout the 16th and part of the 17th centuries. Now I would like to go investigate that enormous lands depicted in the far north by all of the cartographers of those times. Let's start going closer that we can to it, checking out the north of the country of Norway. I have personally traveled all of those areas in few occasions. Those are magnificent lands. And I came out with a few questions. On the screen at this moment, we can appreciate some images of the lands around the city of Alta, Norway. In that particular area, plenty of petroglyph or rock carvings were discovered in 1967. They are numbered in thousands. I have personally studied them, at least over half of them, and I'm planning to study also the other in the future. So I will make a full presentation about these enigmatic carvings in the next episode of this series of documentaries. For the moment, let me show you some baffling aspect of them and create few questions around their existence and items. As we can read on the screen from the Alta Rock Carving official website, the expert archaeologists are assuring us that these particular petroglyphs were made by primitive people between 6,000 and 3,000 years ago. First of all, I would like to know the dating system that has been applied to date them, because I have a personal feeling that the words thousand and millions of years are almost an obsession for historians and archaeologists. And second of all, can you see the blocks of ice shown on the screen? Those are small ice cubes compared to what the expert historians are telling us was the movement of ice during the last couple of thousand years in that particular area of the north of Europe. And the petroglyphs, being in some areas very close to the seashore, I wonder how they could not be scratched away from those massive ice blocks, melting and reforming themselves during all of those thousands of years. The idea that they could have been visible just walking beside them is really fishy. But to me the main question remains the same. We have entire cities in Siberia and Iceland buried by meters of earth or clay in a couple of hundred years, and these carvings were discovered just walking beside them, completely exposed after thousands of years. Interesting. So let's start investigate these magnificent artworks created by the primitive inhabitants of those Nordic areas. In the first few images, we can observe depiction of simple farming daily life, with an extent animal farming, and plenty of depiction of human beings, even being depicted with their reproductive organs, most probably to give the idea of male and female. But can it be that there's another reason to make clear that those carved were male or female human beings? In the next few images, we can appreciate two very different ways of carving people. One is the previously shown simple human without clothes and of small thin sizes. But the second one is clearly wearing some suit, he has horns on top of his head, and is at least double the size of the simple people. Actually, to me, they look almost giants. But if we continue examining the items carved, we stumble upon this petroglyph. What were they trying to represent in these specific works? Which kind of animal or human is this one? I really don't want to give any personal opinion about them, but it gets much weirder. Can somebody kindly tell me what are those figures? They are very strange. Here we can clearly see how they were carving a simple human being. And in this other petroglyph we can observe a small boat, a normal person with a bow, preparing himself to shoot an arrow. And beside of him, a giant being with some strange device in his hands. That figure is way much taller than the other, and the idea that the first one was a kid playing with a bow doesn't make much of a sense to me. So now we know how they were depicting humans and how they were depicting a bow. So what are they? Those are clearly not humans. I mean, they have tails. I really would like to know what the Age of Disclosure channel think about them, because they are researching these strange beings in history. But let's say that those are some misconcepted animals, and that's not a bow, but some stick or so. But what about these guys on the boat? They have horns, very strange looking features, and a tail. What is going on here? The dating of this particular petroglyph is around 3 to 4,000 years ago. So they could not be Vikings because, as we can read on the screen, the Viking civilization is dated approximately between the 8th and 11th centuries. So who are they? What is depicted in front of the boat? What are those enormous boats in any case? Look at this particular boat. It's huge. The body of water in front of the coast of the city of Alta is the Arctic Sea, not a lake. But I have one more question. Here we can see an amazing reindeer. Here we can appreciate a fish. So which kind of animal is this one? I really don't think that it's a swan. But as I said many times in my video, I'm not gonna give any personal opinion about the various presentation. And on this topic of the Alta petroglyph, I need more time to finish study them before having a complete picture and theory about their existence. But let's remain in the north of Norway just for a few more seconds. As we can observe in these images, the composition of the cliffs in this area is very strange, and here and there we can observe some buried weird walls sticking out, and the stones that compose them have way too many right angles and smooth surfaces compared to the surrounding rocks. And also in the sea we can appreciate some very strange cuts on the sides of the various bays. And looking into the water, the stones are very regular and smooth. I'm sorry, but in this picture we cannot have a good example of what I mean. But the seafloor really looks made and not natural. But as I said, I will come back to this area of the north of Europe in a future video. So what about that enormous land in the area of our day's North Pole? In the last few weeks, I was observing a very strange phenomenon here in the cold North Finland. During the migration of birds at the end of autumn, I could clearly see enormous quantity of birds migrating south toward warmer areas of Europe, but also a very large number of them flying in formation direction north. Where were they going?